Off the east tropical coast of Australia, 200 kilometers of sea, there is the miracle of the most amazing life on Earth. Stretching for 2,000 kilometers, the Great Barrier Reef, made up of 3,000 separate reefs and hundreds of coral reefs, covering an area of 340,000 square kilometers, is the most spectacular coral reef in the world. The Great Barrier Reef was listed as a World Natural Heritage Site in 1981. In 1975, the Australian government decided to establish the Great Barrier Reef Marine Park. It proposed the establishment, control, protection, and development of the marine park, which covers 50% of the Great Barrier Reef. The establishment of the ocean park not only plays an important role in the protection of local culture, but also is closely related to the lives of local indigenous people. The entire region was inscribed on the World Heritage List in 1981. From ancient times to the present, the Great Barrier Reef, especially its northern region, has had an important impact on the culture of the indigenous people living on the northwest coast and the Torres Islanders. In addition, there are stone painting art galleries for people to watch and more than 30 famous historical sites dating back to 1791. It is home to 1,500 species of fish and more than 4,000 kinds of mollusks, making it a dream paradise for travelers all over the world. However, the health of the Great Barrier Reef has been plagued by the constant threat of overexploitation, water pollution, and climate change in recent years. In the past 30 years, the Great Barrier Reef has lost nearly 50% of its corals and is declining at a faster rate. Fish deaths are widely spread throughout the harbor, and the numbers of sea turtles, manatees, and dolphins are decreasing year by year. At the end of 2030, the Australian government approved a plan to expand the core terminal in Albert Point, Queensland, one of the 5 major ports alongside the Great Barrier Reef. The project requires dredging about 5 million tons of sediment from the seabed to increase the depth of the port. The resulting waste sediment will be dumped 25 kilometers away in the Great Barrier Reef Ocean Park. It is a World Natural Heritage Site, but it has gone from bad to worse in recent decades. Many species and ecosystem corals, seaweed, sea turtles, and fish, including sharks, are in jeopardy. The causes of these declines are well known: pollution from coastal development, agricultural runoff, coral disease, ocean acidification, coral bleaching caused by ocean warming. The threat of water pollution is particularly serious. The sediment of bathing in the water makes the sea muddy, so organisms that depend on photosynthesis, such as coral system, algae, and other aquatic plants, cannot survive. At the same time, agricultural runoff has also led to an increase in the number of storm-cloud starfish that feed on corals. As of 2017, the pollution reduction strategy implemented is to control agricultural runoff. Although this measure has been successful, the effect is still limited. There is no provision to specifically manage the sediment generated by port construction. These beautiful pictures show the beautiful scenery in Great Barrier Reef. The natural structure gives people a sense of beauty. Its edges inlaid with green and dark blue turquoise. Dizzying and shocking, it's a miracle created by nature. However, our children may never see this miracle with their own eyes. Experts say that all we can leave to future generations may be these amazing pictures to remind future generations of the importance of protecting the environment. The ability of coral reefs to cope with rising sea temperatures over the next century is being hotly debated by scientists and in the media. Such an ending has to make people feel sad. A report released by oceanographer Charlie Warren points out that global warming will wipe out the Great Barrier Reef, a World Heritage Site, in just 20 years. Warren was once the chief scientist of the Australian Institute of Oceanography. "There is nothing we can do," he said. "The Great Barrier Reef will disappear in 20 years also." Warren is not an oceanographer who makes such terrible predictions, nor is his prediction one of the most extreme. At the World Wildlife Experts meeting, Sir David warned that if carbon dioxide levels were not significantly reduced, all tropical coral reefs around the world will be destroyed in the near future. On the World Conference of Wildlife Experts, held at the Royal Society chaired by Sir Attenborough, coral reefs are like caged canaries, he said. They are a reminder that people must pay attention to the fate of the seaworld. Coral reefs are the most vulnerable to damage, and the impact may be the fastest. Anyone who has ever been lucky enough to dive into a coral reef is deeply shocked by its magnificent appearance and biodiversity. For these people, they will be horrified by the fate that the coral reef will die and eventually become a gravel pit covered with brown mud. In 2015, UNESCO received a draft proposal to put the Great Barrier Reef on the endangered list. This decision on the draft will be given at the General Assembly of the World Heritage Committee in Germany in late June. In the past 30 years, the Great Barrier Reef has lost nearly 50% of its corals and is declining at a faster rate. Global species diversity is facing a serious test, and many countries are taking measures to protect it. Nearly half of the coral on the Great Barrier Reef has become extinct in the past 30 years, and researchers worry that fragile ecosystems will lead to the extinction of the species. Therefore, Aerogazone and the Australian Institute of Marine Science, together with the Smithsonian Institution, will launch conservation efforts to use artificial breeding technology to freeze coral sperm. During the coral breeding season, researchers collected hundreds of millions of coral sperm that can be frozen for thousands of years. The researchers will use some sperm to help regenerate corals on the Great Barrier Reef.